So the Ever Crisis 2-year anniversary has officially wrapped up, and it looks like they've got some really cool and unexpected collaborations coming in year 2. We also got some words from Tetsuya Nomura in regards to Remake Part 3, which on the surface might sound a little boring. But if you dig a little deeper, I think there is some excitement to be had there. So let's talk about it. So the first thing we have to address is the big elephant in the room. No Genesis at this live stream. Now, why do I bring up Genesis? Well, recently, the voice and likeness behind the character of Genesis, Gact, was spotted back in the studio where he's recording his voice for a new project. We don't know what that project is. It could be a completely unrelated game. It could be an animated film. It could be him doing new music, but we just know that he's back recording his voice, which led me and a lot of other people to speculate, could this be for something Final Fantasy VII related? And if it is, it's most likely related to Ever Crisis, since the story of the first soldier is focusing very heavily on young Sephiroth and all of his important connections, including people like Angeal. So it stands to reason that eventually a Genesis would get included in that story and he'd need a voice, which, you know, why not bring back Gact? It's also possible, maybe he'll be in Remake Part 3. If you want more information on some of my thoughts on that, I'll link you to one of my previous videos where we go in depth with that. But as of right now, no Genesis has been announced for Ever Crisis. So for the live stream itself, we are going to be pulling at times from Audrey on Twitter, who watched the entire 2-hour live stream and translated some of the more important bits. So whenever we have direct translations, I'll pull up her quotes and we'll read them as she wrote them. But starting off first, the original Sephiroth will now be playable for the very first time outside of story stuff in Ever Crisis, which is pretty nuts when you think about it. 2 years in and we're just now unlocking OG Sephiroth, which all of the focus has been on young Sephiroth. He's been the main available Sephiroth that we can use in and out of story stuff since pretty much the beginning of this game. And outside of some story stuff within episode 1, where you could play as older Sephiroth back when he was in Wutai, which is a really cool story, by the way, this will be the first time that he's actually playable on his own. He's obviously going to get some skins, including new weapons, and he looks really cool, really powerful. Again, these are demonstrations for these live streams, so they tend to crank up the numbers on these characters, but it's Sephiroth. I would expect him to be incredibly powerful. Up next, we have a collaboration with Final Fantasy. This one in particular is Advent Children. Now, I just have to say, whenever Ever Crisis collaborates with Final Fantasy, which is essentially Final Fantasy collaborating with Final Fantasy, it reminds me of that President Obama meme where he's just awarding himself a medal. It's like, congratulations, you're working with yourself. Good job. I just think that's kind of funny. But again, this is Advent Children, and this is pretty cool because they're going to have a boss battle with Bahamut Sin, who you may remember from the film that the entire party had to fight in Edge. Cloud had to land the killing blow. It was a really, really cool action sequence in that movie. That version of Bahamut is going to be a big boss battle, which is pretty cool.
But wait, there's more.
They're also going to be including weapon and costume skins for the characters directly from Advent Children. They even give us a little preview of the gun that Barrett uses in that film. But as far as what they showed off in the live stream, Cloud, Tifa, and Yuffie will all be getting their Advent Children costumes, including their respective weapons. So Cloud is going to be getting the fusion sword, Tifa will be getting her gloves, and Yuffie will be getting the shuriken that she used in that film as well. And to make it even cooler, young Sephiroth will also be getting Kadaj's outfit. And I have to say, I understand who Kadaj and that crew were. They were basically like remnants of Sephiroth, but seeing young Sephiroth in the Kadaj outfit, it's just Kadaj. It's funny how similar those characters actually really look, especially since this is the first time we're seeing young Sephiroth in that outfit, and Kadaj himself was pretty young. So that's pretty trippy to a degree, but also really cool. Now, Nomura does mention in the live stream that they do have more Ever Crisis Advent Children stuff to announce. However, they couldn't fit it all into this live stream. So I'm assuming the Japanese Ever Crisis account and even the American one will probably update periodically some of the newer costumes for the other characters, maybe weapon skins and other events. But as of right now, this is all that they're able to really share with us. I'm also holding out hope that eventually these Advent Children costumes and weapons do make their way into Remake Part 3. We've seen so many Advent Children isms already in this Remake trilogy, and who knows, maybe we could play something from the movie in Part 3, and to have those costumes and weapons be unlockable for the finale, I think would be really cool, and maybe they could find a way to include a lot of these Ever Crisis bonus costumes in general in Part 3. They've done a really cool job of coming up with new, fun, creative, cool-looking costumes for these characters, and to only have them in Ever Crisis would be kind of a bummer. So hopefully some of those make their way into Part 3, and maybe it's a situation where you got to finish the game first, and then you can unlock those costumes and just play with something different and have it be really cool and unique, and just go all out for the finale. Now up next, and this is actually really exciting and it kind of crept up out of nowhere, but episode 2 of The First Soldier will have its finale next month, which would mark about a year since they launched episode 2, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been covering episode 2 in depth for, a year now, which honestly doesn't really feel like it, but that's going to be a really, really big finale. I'm super curious to see how they cap off episode 2, because episode 1 had some pretty big revelations when we saw that all of this stuff that we've been witnessing with young Sephiroth is seemingly older Sephiroth on the edge of creation, reminiscing about his younger days. So again, they found a way to take the First Soldier stuff and connect it to the Remake trilogy. So don't get your hopes up, but I'm expecting perhaps another bigger kind of bombshell or event to occur at the finale of episode 2. Don't hold me to it, but I would kind of expect something bigger to happen. Maybe another revelation for the Remake trilogy, who really knows, but this is the finale. I know they like to go big for these stories. And also, if you're someone who keeps up with my recaps of those chapters, please let me know if you would like for me to keep doing them. I kind of get in my head sometimes on whether or not I'm doing a good enough job on covering those. Am I including all of the important information? Am I forgetting stuff? Are there nuances that I'm missing? So let me know if you do check those out, if you would like for me to continue on to episode 3 whenever that ends up happening, because I do enjoy doing them, but I just kind of worry that maybe I'm not doing them proper justice. So I'd really love your feedback in the comments if you're willing to give it. Now, what's also cool is that there will be a side story featuring Glenn, Matt, and Lucia, which is essentially going to tell us the events of those characters from the First Soldier all the way up to Rebirth. So that means we're going to see what happens to Glenn, how he ends up dying at the hands of Rufus, what leads to that situation. We're also going to see where Matt and Lucia end up, and we do know in Rebirth they were name dropped in the Cosmo Canyon side quest with Wedge. So those two are still alive and kicking, seemingly probably part of different Avalanche groups doing their own thing, but it would be really cool to kind of finally get the finer details on what exactly happens, why did Rufus kill Glenn, and where Matt and Lucia eventually end up. Up next, President Obama, get your medal ready, because it's another collaboration with Final Fantasy, but this one, super cool, completely unexpected, and I think a lot of people are going to be happy. This is a collaboration with Final Fantasy XIII, and it's cool because Tifa and Aerith are both getting the Lightning outfit. Now, Nomura did mention on the live stream that they kept going back and forth on who would get Lightning's outfit. They couldn't figure out, will it be Tifa, will it be Aerith? So they just said, screw it, we're going to give the outfit to both of them, which I think is great. I was kind of hoping that maybe Cloud would get his own version of Lightning's outfit, since back when, oh god, was it Lightning Returns came out? I know she got the Buster Sword and the Soldier outfit that Cloud wore. So maybe Cloud will get something Lightning related somewhere down the line. I think that'd be pretty cool. But that's not all. Lightning will also appear as a boss battle. So that's pretty sick. Now, there was no mention on if eventually she would become a playable character. I would assume no. So she's probably just going to be a special limited time only collaboration boss battle. But the fact that they're including stuff from 13 is super cool again. When 13 first came out, it did get a lot of ire from Final Fantasy fans. It seemed like the fan base was pretty split. But as time has gone on, it seems like more people are, kind of changing their original opinions on how they felt about 13. And there's a lot more people who are like, you know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was. And they're giving it a second chance and actually coming around to it being a pretty fun game. So I was one of those people back in the day who really couldn't get into 13, but it's still one of those games that I do want to eventually jump back into and see to the end. Because again, I do hear a lot of really great things, which it's a cyclical thing with the Final Fantasy fan base. A new Final Fantasy comes out. Some fans love it, some people hate it, but as time goes on, I think people are willing to kind of be a little less harsh with their criticism and maybe be a little bit more fair and see a lot more of the positive aspects of, whatever game may be in question. Up next is another crossover, but this one not with Final Fantasy. This is with the Nier franchise. Now, I know a tiny bit about Nier. I know a lot of people love it. I know it's kind of a weird game. I've never played them myself, but they will be collaborating with that franchise. They didn't really give too many details, but that will be happening later this year. Now, they do give us a roadmap for Season 2, which starts off in September. Again, that's when OG Sephiroth and the Advent Children collaboration will be taking place, which I believe is on September 7th. So the actual official second year anniversary is when that stuff will be available. October is when the finale of The First Soldier is going to be taking place. So this is actually the longest stretch of time, I believe, since they've had a First Soldier episode. Our last one was in June. I was expecting one in August, but now it's not going to hit until October. And it makes sense why. It's the finale. It's probably going to have a lot of stuff in it. And that's going to be setting up whatever happens in episode 3 whenever they, plan to release that. November will be the Final Fantasy XIII collaboration with the Lightning Outfits and boss battle, and December is when the Nier stuff will be going down. Now, for the reason most of you have probably watched through or probably skipped sections of the video, we get to Tetsuya Nomura's remarks on Remake Part 3 as well as Kingdom Hearts 4, and we have a couple different translations from Audrey that I will be pulling from over on Twitter. Thank you again to Audrey for watching these live streams and translating them the best you can. It's not easy, there's a lot of information, and it's easy to kind of forget certain things, but I think she does a pretty good job. So, starting off first, Nomura says, Toriyama apparently said in the second anniversary for Ever Crisis that we would have news about Remake Part 3. We have decided on the timing of when we will make an announcement. The game is making great progress. We are also making good strides for Kingdom Hearts 4 too. Audrey also offers more clearer translations by saying both games are making great progress. They have already decided on when they will make the big announcement for Part 3, so stay tuned. She also did post a video with further translations, which I will put in this video as well.
リメイクシリーズの3作目に関して鳥山がね、インタビューでこの2周年の頃にはなんか出てるんじゃないかみたいに言ってたらしくて、すごく順調にはやってます。ただ言えない。僕はここで実はですねみたいな突然言い出したらみんなびっくりしちゃうんで、すごく順調にやってますし、出すタイミングもすべて決まって、そのスケジュール通りに今は進めてますんで、安心してお待ちください。これは同様にそれもちょこちょこコメント出てましたけど、キングダムハーツ4の同様に粛々とスケジュール通り進行してますんでお待ちください。はい。
So that is the update. Again, it might sound kind of boring, very PR, like, yes, we're making great progress on the game, please be excited for it. And it does seem like there was some confusion based on Motomo Toriyama's words, which again, just a refresher, close to a year ago now, when the first year anniversary for Ever Crisis hit, Motomo Toriyama and a bunch of the Ever Crisis devs got together and they were interviewed by Famitsu. And at the very tail end of that interview, not many people caught on to it at first, they say from Motomo Toriyama that around the time of the second year anniversary, we might get updates in regards to the remake project. Now, I interpreted that as around the time of the anniversary, we could get a separate announcement for Remake Part 3, meaning before the anniversary or maybe sometime after. I never assumed it was going to take place during this live stream, which apparently some people were under the impression that, oh, maybe at the Ever Crisis live stream, they'll announce something big for Remake Part 3. So that's not how I interpreted it. I don't think I interpreted it that way in my videos either. If I did, I fully apologize. I never want to mislead people or have them assume like something is going to happen at this event. But I was, again, under the impression it would happen before or after the event, not at the live stream itself, because I've covered these live streams before. So I really know what the format is. I know how they section things out, how long they are, how involved Nomura gets. So I personally wasn't expecting a big revelation at this event. So apparently some people were under that impression. So maybe there were some mistranslations out there, or it was a game of telephone. You know how stuff happens. One person says something, another person abbreviates it, that person runs with it, and then someone else shows up. It becomes a really big mess. But again, referring to his words, they're making great progress. Now, here's what I think is actually really exciting, which might sound kind of boring. they've already decided on the date of when they're going to make a big announcement for Remake Part 3. That big announcement, I personally believe, and this is just my personal thought, may have been what Motomo Toriyama was hinting at a year ago. And I mentioned in previous videos that it's possible that if we don't get any info on Remake Part 3, by Tokyo Game Show or by the Ever Crisis 2-year anniversary itself, that maybe they had some stuff change and they decided to change the date on when they would make that announcement. And based on what Nomura is saying here, it kind of sounds like that's what happened. They weren't quite sure on when that big announcement was going to happen, but now they have a firm date on when they want to release that, which means the train's moving, folks. And I don't think Nomura would have said that if we weren't going to get something this year. And that's just, again, my own personal thoughts and feelings. Don't take that to the bank and try to cash it. But that could mean maybe Tokyo Game Show, which still does seem maybe a little too early for an announcement, although it's a very appropriate venue. Square Enix, again, they love to attend TGS. They like to go big. And every year, TGS seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it really does seem like a fitting place to announce something in regards to Remake Part 3, maybe its own live stream or the announcement of the third game. Although it is worth noting that as of right now, Square Enix doesn't have anything Final Fantasy VII planned for this year's Tokyo Game Show appearance. Right now, they only have Final Fantasy XIV, Octopath Traveler 0, Dragon Quest 1 and 2, Final Fantasy Tactics, and then their yearly live show that they do where they bring people on, they demo games, they have previews. That's all they have planned right now. So if something Remake Part 3 were to show up at this year's TGS, it would have to be a big surprise that doesn't get teased until like the week of or the week before Tokyo Game Show. So keep expectations in check for that. The other option, which we've been saying for a long time now, the Game Awards. It's an incredibly popular show. I think it's the most watched gaming event of the year. We're talking tens of millions of people who tune in as the show is going on, and then afterwards, once they tally the numbers, the viewership gets pretty insane. So if you want the most eyes on that type of announcement, I think the Game Awards is probably the best bet. But again, that's just me speculating. This is not confirmation on anything, but I really do feel like Nomura wouldn't have said what he said if they didn't have something planned this year. But again, it is nice to get reconfirmation that the development process of this game is still running very smoothly and seemingly are having no issues, which, it's no news is good news, I suppose. But, coming from older Square Enix games that have had so much development trouble, Kingdom Hearts 4 has been in development for like 67 years. You kind of get used to these games having some sort of issues or having a delay. But for the remake project to be as smooth as it is kind of new. It's a strange feeling. And I think a lot of people forget that the entirety of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was developed during a pandemic. So the fact that they got that game out when they did, as good as it is, as smooth as it is, with no issues, is incredibly impressive. So imagine what they can do with a part 3 outside of the pandemic when they've all gone back to their offices. All of Square Enix's dev team are now in one building now, so they can, pull other resources and information from other sections. I expect so much from Remake Part 3, and I fully believe they're going to deliver. So with that being said, that was the recap for the 2-year anniversary for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. They've got some really cool stuff lined up for this year, especially the Advent Children stuff, which looks really exciting. And I'm really curious to see, how do they end the first Soldier Episode 2, and what big bomb could they potentially drop on us there? I am curious, Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of what we covered in today's video. I'd also really love to know, how do you think Episode 2 of The First Soldier is going to end? And how do you think it will tie back to the remake trilogy, assuming they do that? I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.